Good morning. Today we're going to look at 5 chapters of Joshua, 11 through 15. And this is, yesterday they had conquered the southern lands, and we had the sun standing still. One of those miracles that just, boom, really seems, oh, wow, that's, that's something only God could do. But in these chapters we're going to look at today, it's conquest of more land and more people just being totally annihilated. I mean, just wiped out. I mean, killed to the last man, and it just grates on us. I mean, on me anyway, and hopefully it bothers you too. That God, this loving, gracious God, would instruct Moses and then Joshua to totally destroy these people. And um, and in many ways, I mean, it just doesn't seem like God. However, these people that are utterly being destroyed, if you look back in Leviticus, um, it talks about some of them and how they were living. They were, you know, they were the ones that were guilty of incest, of adultery, of child sacrifice, of homosexuality, bestiality, just, I mean, you name it. And it was prevalent and common, everyday occurrences. And not to say that we're any different. I mean, we're sinners too, right? I mean, yeah, we sin. And and we deserve kind of that same punishment, that same condemnation that these people, these Canaanites and those that were living, the Jebusites and so many that just are totally annihilated. I mean, we deserve that same death, same destruction, the same condemnation. And um, and so we kind of understand, a little bit of why, or God is saying that, but yet it still just hurts. I mean, it just truly hurts to see all of these people that are just wiped out, and because of their sin. On the flip side of their sin, um, another reason that God is telling the Israelites, commanding Joshua now to take his armies and to destroy them, and God is going before them, leading, guiding, causing disruption. I mean, God is very instrumental in all of this. And that's because God has chosen these people. And he's protecting his people, trying to protect his people from the idolatry, from the child abuse, from everything that these other lands are doing so blatantly wrong. Not that the Israelites weren't sinners too, because they did. And God knew people's weakness. God knew that, if the idols still stood from the Canaanites, and the Canaanites were still there worshiping Baal and doing all these, the Israelites would be much more apt to take on these same sins. And so, God was not only punishing the sin of those others, which I guess we could say is rightly deserved. Thankfully, we don't get what we are rightly deserved, but the protection of his chosen people, the preservation of his chosen people, although we know how they sinned and fell away and everything too. So it's, it's just one of those things that just hurts me, especially to think about all of these lives that have been lost, just annihilated, and of everything that goes on. And so, like yesterday in chapter 10, there was the southern conquest, and he had, Joshua had led the armies, and then chapter 11 begins with, it came to pass when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard these things, he sent to Joab, and he sent to a bunch of other kings, to come together. And but the Lord said in verse 6 of chapter 11, do not be afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time I will deliver them all to your hands. I will deliver all of them slain before Israel, and so it's this loving, gracious God that's doing this, and it just, I mean, it's one of the one of the heartaches of the Old Testament, one of the heartaches of God's leading and guiding his people into the promised land. But as I said, it's God's attempt to protect them, to preserve them, to give them the best chance that they can have to remain faithful. And so, the battle comes. In verse 7, Joshua and all the people of war came with him, and suddenly by the waters of Meribah they attacked, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of them. And so Joshua did as the Lord had told him. And he turned back at that time, and the kings were wiped out and killed. And verse 16 then starts with the summary of Joshua's conquests of the lands. And chapter 12 talks about the kings conquered by Moses, because remember there were two tribes and one half tribe of Manasseh that took land outside of the promised land, and those kings had been defeated by Moses, God leading that. And then verse 7 of chapter 12 starts listing and talking about the kings that were conquered by Joshua, of course, with God leading and guiding. And chapter 13, now Joshua was old, advanced in years. So, this is, not all happened in a day, because, I don't know how old, I don't remember how old Joshua was when Moses died. It probably told us, and it just went all right out of my head. But, so Joshua is now old, and God says to him, you are old, advanced in years, and there remains much land yet to be possessed. This is the land that remains, and he talks about all of that land. And verse 8 is a reminder of with the half tribe of the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them, again reminding them of these that are there. And so now divide the remaining land between these 9, the remaining half tribe and the other tribes of or it'd be 10 actually that way, and so the land becomes divided, and it talks about the land of Reuben, the land of Gad, the half tribe of Manasseh gets this, and west of the Jordan gets that, and everything else, and Caleb, the land of Judah, and so it talks about all of the different lands that the different tribes of Israel receive, and then in talks about in chapter 15, talks about the cities that are within each of these lands and everything else as well, and there's a listing within here too of all of the kings that were defeated by Joshua as they were conquering these lands, and maybe we're but it's just showing how God is providing, trying to protect his people, and I think about that protection as well, and what do we need protecting from today, huh? The devil is still alive, active, working in our world, and within us, within our communities. There is so much that tries to keep us busy, busy. That's one of those words, again, a kind of an acronym, buried under Satan's yoke, busy. And this is, this is how Satan works. And this is one of the things that God is trying to protect us for. And that, Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. And it's just a reminder that, all of this busyness of life, we need to take time, remind ourselves that, we get so wrapped up and so confused by too much going on that we sometimes lose focus, and just to remember to take that time to be still and to acknowledge that God is leading and guiding, still leading and guiding us, and trying to protect us from the evils of the world, just as with all of this annihilation of these total lands, total peoples, that just grates on us. It doesn't seem fair. It's a reminder to me that God is more than fair. He sends his son Jesus into this world as our Savior. He forgives us graciously. I mean, we don't receive the punishment that we deserve. Really, truly we don't, because of God's grace. And that's what I hang on to every day, is the grace and love of God that comes freely to each and every one.